I'll start sharing the screen now. Is it visible?
Yes.
Okay, so now let's begin with our DVW. Let's continue with where we left off yesterday. So the first thing is, and then we start the Apache server. Oh, oops. Yes, so it's done. Turn that off for now. Okay, so DVW is open now. Yesterday we looked at brute forcing using burp suit. Now you can also do that using Hydra. Hydra is command line. So if I just enter Hydra here, this is going to give me all the different options that I can use with Hydra. So after Hydra, the first thing that I'm going to specify is the IP. Now in this case, the IP is of course localhost. Then I'm going to specify the username to be used for this login. And username I can specify using the hyphen L option. So we already know the username is admin. For password, if I were to consider that we know the password already and we are looking for login, then I would use hyphen small p here. But since the password is what we are trying to crack and we are providing a word list, capital P, and then the path. Now we need to tell Hydra what service we are targeting. So these are all the different kind of services that it supports. And in order to continue with the attack, we need to tell Hydra what service we are targeting. Now in this case, we are using HTTP since it's a
सर इसमें आई थिंक यूजर सही लिखा हुआ है ये यूएसआर
हाँ
ये ऐसे ही लिखना है
ऐसे ही होता है. चेक कर सकते हो अपने सिस्टम में अगर चाहो तो. डायरेक्टरी जहाँ पे वर्ड लिस्ट है, यूजर शेयर वर्ड लिस्ट fasttrack.txt, ये पर्टिकुलर वर्ड लिस्ट में यूज कर रहा हूँ यहाँ पे. So since we are using HTTP, it's a web browser, and the method that is being used here is get, HTTP get method, and we can confirm that if we want. I click on login. So it's all the parameters are being passed through the URL itself. So it's a get request. So HTTP get, and it's a form. Whenever you are submitting a login form, whenever you are submitting your credentials, it's a form actually. So it has input fields and a submit button. So that's the form structure. We'll have a few input fields and a button to submit it. So we are using HTTP get form in this case. Now I need to tell it the path. So the URL in this case. So that will be www vulnerabilities and brute. Copy this simply, paste it here. I don't need to specify localhost because I've already mentioned the IP here. That's how we can continue from after that. And after root, I need to enter a colon, and then since this is a get request, you can simply copy this from here. Username is equal to this one. Now in place of this username is equal to a, I'll simply use username is equal to, this is a format for using whatever username you have specified. And for the password also, we'll simply do password is equal to pass, and login is equal to login. Yes, just leave that as it is because that is not something that we are concerned with. Now we have specified this IP address and URL, but we also need to tell it what to expect in case our login fails. So in that case, what I need to do is I'll again add a colon here. I'll copy this text which we get when you use the incorrect credentials, and I'll paste it over here. So that is done. Now we just need one more thing. H is equal to and we need to specify the cookie that we are getting when we use DBWA, because we want the server to think that we are actually making these requests as a legitimate user and not through a password cracking tool. So to get the cookie, a simple way is I can use burp suit. The value that I get there, I can simply copy that. So we have this cookie here. I need to simply copy this entire thing, and I'll now paste it and end the double quotes. So now we have everything we need to continue with our attack. So I'll press enter, and Hydra has now started performing the attack. Okay, at this time the processor consumption, okay, it's way too high. So it's going to take a while before this attack finishes. Also, if you remember when we were doing this with Burp Suit yesterday on the medium security level, it was slower than the attack that we had run for the low level. Why that is? Because, okay, now in DBWA you can view the source code of what is running server side when you select any vulnerability. You can see the server side source code. So you can view it using this view source button. So in this case, if we take a look at the source code for the current vulnerability, then you can see that in case your credentials are correct and your login is successful, it's going to show you the welcome to the password protected area message. But if your login fails, if you have entered the incorrect credentials, there is a command sleep 2. So this will put the server to sleep for 2 seconds. So for those 2 seconds, it is not going to process any incoming requests. Now, what this means is when we are using Burp or even Hydra with this medium security level, then what happens is after every incorrect password attempt that we make, we need actually not we, the tool needs to wait for 2 seconds before the next request can be processed. So for every incorrect login, the server sleeps for 2 seconds. Now this is a mechanism that is used to deter attackers from trying to perform these kind of attacks on a website. Because if you know you, you think of this in a realistic attacking scenario, your word list won't be as small as the one that we're using right now. Most probably you may not even know the username. So you will be trying to crack both things and excuse me. So you will be trying to crack both things and your word list in that case would be huge. Okay, word lists have millions and billions of passwords as well, depending on what word lists you're using. So that will take even more time, and eventually the attacker will get discouraged and move on to another website. So this kind of a measure is taken to discourage attackers from trying these kind of password cracking attacks. So this is brute force. Any questions? No? Okay. Excuse me. So the high level, you try that out by yourself and even try these two out by yourself and see what you get. Now we come to command injection, but before that, let's just come to the terminal first. Now when we write commands on a terminal, we can chain multiple commands together. So we can write multiple commands together in the same line. How we do that is, let's say I want to know my present working directory and I want to perform ls as well. So I can simply do this. I can use a semicolon after the first command and type the next command after that. So both these commands have executed. This is the output for PWD and this is the output for ls. And I can't just chain two commands. I can chain more if I want. ls Punai. Okay, cd will not give a direct output, so I'm not using that here. So in this case, we have chained four commands and we've gotten the output for all four of them one by one. This is one way using semicolons. Another way is if I were to use this double ampersand, but this is not just normal command chaining. This means that the second command will only execute if the first command executes successfully. In this case, of course, PWD is executing properly, so ls also gets executed. And if I do this, and now we change the directory and we listed the contents of the directory. Of course, there are even more ways to chain commands. If I were to do, let's say, if config, and if I do it with one ampersand, that means all of these are going to be executed simultaneously. So this changes the way it works. What is the command that we specified? lspwd and this if config. So here we gotten the output for pwd first, then ls, then if config. Now if I do this, this is also command chaining, but it doesn't work the same. If the first command runs, then the second will not run. This is basically your AND operator, sorry, your OR operator. AND is this ampersand. So AND, so only if this works, only then this is going to work. This OR operator, what happens is, either when you're typing this, it means you want to run either this or this. So if the first one executes, the second one will not execute. If the first one does not run, then the second one will run. But this is also, this could also be thought of as a way to chain commands. But then you cannot run all of them simultaneously. That's something you need to keep in mind. Now this is the concept of chaining different commands in one single line. Let's come to this vulnerability command injection. For now, let's turn go up off. So this is saying that, we need to enter an IP address and then it's going to ping whatever IP we are specifying. Okay, so let's try this. And we specified an IP and it pinged that IP. Now, if I take a look at this source code, I can see that this is the input that I gave. It's being stored in this target variable. And what is happening is it's simply executing the command ping followed by whatever input I'm giving it. So it's like there is a ping command written here, and after that, whatever you specify is going to be ping. Now it tells you to enter an IP. But what happens if I enter a domain? Because ping works with domain as well. But this input is telling us that we need to enter an IP. So let's try. Okay, so this is working as well. We are able to ping google.com. We entered a domain instead of an IP, and it still works because the ping command will work regardless of what you enter. But this is not the expected usage for this, because if it's asking for an IP address, you should only be able to enter that. Okay, now what happens if I type google.com? And I change the other commands as well here. PWD. Let's see. Okay, so after ping google.com, it's also running ls and pwd. Now this is a vulnerability known as command injection. We are able to inject commands into this input field and run whatever commands we want on the server, because this DVWA is a website, it's being hosted on a web server. So whatever commands we are able to run here, these commands are running on the web server. Now in this case, of course, the web server is our own device, but if this were an actual web server, we would be able to run commands there and see the contents of directories on that server. We could also do stuff like, specify an IP. Okay, even if you don't specify an IP, that's fine. ls pwd, and you could also say cat etc password. So apart from doing ls and pwd, now you're also able to view the contents of the password file. So this is known as a command injection vulnerability. We are able to inject any commands that we want. And instead of just doing this, what I can also do is use these double ampersand. So I can also use that.
Hello.
Yes. So we are able to change commands here quite easily. Let's try changing the security level here. Now let's try the same thing, whether we are able to do it or not. Let's check. Okay, 1.1.1.1 less and pwd. Let's try. So it won't work in this case. Let's try something else. This does not work either. Let's try another method. So this works. So we are still able to perform command injection on this server. Let's view the source code, see what kind of changes have been made in this case. So here we see that they have set a blacklist. In case our input contains this semicolon, it will be replaced with a white space. If it contains double ampersand, again it will be replaced with a white space. Otherwise, everything is allowed to run. So we are able to run this using the single ampersand for chaining the commands. Let's try changing it further. Now on high, let's try the previous one and see if we can run it. No, we cannot. And even this would not work. Let's see if it works or not. Okay, so this worked in this case. The first one did not execute, but the second one did run. Let's see what changes they made to the source code. So now they've expanded upon the blacklist, and a lot of things have been blacklisted. But we were still able to run our chaining, but only with a particular trick, and even then we can only run one command like that. If I go to impossible level security, what is going to happen? Let's see. Does this work here? No. Okay, it straight away gives me an error saying that you have entered an invalid IP. Does it work with google.com? Let's see. No. In this case, it will not even work with a domain name. It will simply tell you that you have entered an invalid IP if you enter anything other than an IP address. Because now what they are doing is they're taking the input and they're splitting the input into 4 parts and checking whether each of those 4 parts is an integer or not. If it turns out to be an IP address, if all the 4 octets turn out to be solely integers, only then it is going to continue with executing the command. Otherwise, we'll see an error like this. You have entered an invalid IP. Any questions here? No? Okay. So allow URL include is not enabled. Strange. Let me check. I never disabled it. Okay, no problem. Most how about if I use permission denied. Okay. Okay. Now this should work. Now file inclusion is we'll just take a I'll just show you how it works and then you'll get a better understanding. File inclusion is when you are able to include other files in the web page, including stuff that you should not be able to include. So they've shown three files here. File 1. If I click on file 2, then I'll see this. And take a look at the URL. Okay, it's changing for every file that we access. And there is a parameter known as page, which is changing whenever we change the files. Now, since this is file inclusion, maybe I can try to include other files as well. Now, since this is file inclusion, since this is a parameter which you know which points to whatever page is showing, maybe I can try to see some particular web page or a particular file in the server itself. So let's try. Now what I'm doing is I'm looking for stuff in other directories. So first we need to make sure that we are at the root, and then we'll go to etc. Try looking at password. Okay, so since this server is vulnerable to file inclusion, we have been able to include the etc password file with the page parameter, and these are the contents of that file. So we are able to see that. This kind of thing is known as local file inclusion. File inclusion is of two types. Local file inclusion is when you are making use of such a vulnerability, when you're using such a parameter to view a file that is present on the server locally. So this is a file on this server itself, the server's etc password file you are viewing currently. Remote file inclusion is when you include some other file from some other source. Let's say in case of page, I write so now it's opening the google.com page within our DBWA page. This is remote file inclusion because this page is remote. It's not hosted on this server. It's hosted somewhere else, which is basically on Google servers. And from there, we are able to get this page and include it in our DBWA web page. So this is a remote file inclusion. When we are trying to include a file that is present locally on the server, that is local file inclusion, and this kind of thing is known as remote file inclusion. Again, we can view the source code, and it's simply sending our input as this page, and it's entering that here. So this is file inclusion. If I want, I can try to access any file on the system or over the internet. If I want, in case of Google, I can specify any website that I want. Let's say, this parrotsec.org. Let's try that. Now, if you think of this from an attacker's point of view, he could use this kind of thing to show a malicious website to your user. So now you're seeing the ParrotSec homepage on your DVWA website. Now if I go back to the security part, set it to medium. Let's try the same thing again. File1.php. Instead, let me try etc password. So that does not work now. Let's try something else. Does this work? No, this will not work either. So let's see what changes have been made to the source. Now take a look here. Basically what they're doing is they're validating the input now. So if you are entering anything beginning with HTTP or HTTPS, that is going to be replaced with an empty string. And if you have this dot dot forward slash or dot dot backward slash, that is going to be replaced as well. But what happens if I do this? I'm still able to access google.com. So the remote file inclusion vulnerability is still present. And do you understand what is happening in this case? When the server sees this input and it sees this HTTP colon double forward slash, that is going to be removed. So if I remove that, what happens is I get the original thing again, HTTP colon double forward slash. Now since it's only doing this removal process once, this will actually get executed. So again we're able to do the same thing. And going by this logic, can someone tell me what I should write here so that the HC password, this thing should work? What I should write in this case? We know that this dot dot forward slash, if I just write this is all going to get blocked. It's all going to get turned into white spaces. So how can I get past that? Any guesses? No? Okay. So see, if it sees this together, double dots and a forward slash is going to remove that. What I can do instead is I can use double dot, again double dot, and two forward slashes. Yeah, I'll just remove this for now. So when this gets removed, and this part gets removed, again what I'm left with is this. So if I repeat this process, again now I'm able to get the etc password file, and even though there are some protections in place on the server side to prevent against this, I'm able to bypass those and exploit this file inclusion vulnerability. Any questions here?
No, sir. Got it.
No. Okay. Let's try high now. Let's see whether this works in this case. So we get an error in this case that file is not found. Let's see what's happening now. So now they have simply added a check which says that if the input that you have entered does not match this thing, does not match this file, then does not actually does not start with file, and they've added an asterisk. So after that asterisk, it could be file 1, file 2, or file 3. So if your input does not match this, then, or if your input does not match this page include.php, then you will simply give you an error. So this file 1, file 2, and file 3 would all work. But what they have done is, even here they have made a mistake. They've given us file and asterisk after that. Asterisk means I could add any number of characters, I could add anything I want. What I'm going to do is, I'm going to try this. So it's still opening, because when you add an asterisk, that means any number of characters you can enter there. So instead of file 3 or file 2, I simply use this format file colon double forward slash, just like we use in HTTP or HTTPS. If you want to open a file locally, we use this format. So I use this to open the password file. So even in this high level of security, we are able to bypass it in order to get local file inclusion. Now remote file inclusion will not be possible in this case, but local file inclusion can still be done. So for impossible level, if I try to do the same thing, what do I get? Let's see. So in this case, I'm getting the error, file not found. Let's see the source code, what changes they have made. Now they're adding strict checks that, okay, if the file name is include.php or file1.php, file2.php, or file3.php, only then it is going to let them open. Otherwise, anything else will say file not found. So in this case, you will not be able to perform any kind of file inclusion, neither local nor remote. That is the file inclusion vulnerability. And we change our security level back to low. So we have seen brute force, command injection, and file inclusion so far. Let's take a look at file upload now. So file upload vulnerabilities now. There are a lot of websites, there are a lot of cases where you need to upload something on a website. For example, let's say you're filling a form, you need to upload your photo, you need to upload some document, and you have these kind of things. In this case, it's saying that you need to choose an image to upload. So technically, it should only be possible for you to upload images there, image files. But of course, since this is vulnerable, let's try uploading something else, something other than an image. Let's see. Okay, it's asking for an image, but let me check if I can upload just anything that I want. Let's say this is a JavaScript file. Let's try uploading that. Browse, upload. Okay, so it has been uploaded as well. It said that we should choose an image to upload, but we selected a JavaScript file and it happily uploaded that. And it's also telling us the path where that file was. So let's go there. Just let's just copy this for now, and so this is the list of uploads that are this is the directory uploads. We are able to see the uploads directory here, and we are able to see all the files present in this directory. So this is the one that we uploaded, a JavaScript file. If I open it, it's also going to open here. Okay, so in a file upload vulnerability that we are looking at, it asks us for an image, but it's allowing us to upload other kinds of files as well. Now the thing is, there is no proper check applied. So whatever you are uploading, it's simply uploading it. It's not checking anything. Now I can take advantage of this if I'm thinking of this as an attacker from an attacker's point of view. then I could take advantage of this and upload some malicious file as well, because it's not checking for file extensions or anything. So I could upload whatever I want. So I will do just that. Now there is okay, there are files known as web shells. What web shells do is, when you if you upload these web shells to a server and you are able to execute them, they will give you shell access on the server, so you will be able to do anything you want on that server. What I'm going to do is, I'm going to try and upload such a file to DVWA, and we'll see what happens. First we need to go to the home directory and okay, desktop perhaps. Now there is this popular web shell known as B374K, and I'm going to be using that. So let's click on browse b374k.php and upload. So it's telling me that the file has been successfully uploaded. Also, this b374k, it can be found on GitHub, so you can download it from here. B374k shell, and it's a web shell, so it's going to, yeah. Okay, let's see how it works. Now that I've uploaded it, and it's giving me the directory. Hackable uploads. So this is our file b374k.php. So I'll just click on it, see what happens. And it requires a password before I can use it. Okay, password is b374k itself. So this has opened up the web shell. Now this is executing on that server, and I can do whatever I want within that server. So this is the uploads directory, since this file is currently in the uploads directory. But I can view whatever directory I want. I can view the DVWA directory, or I can view any directory, access any file on the server. It does not necessarily have to be a file associated with your website. It could be any file. So could I access root? Probably not. Okay, no, we are accessing root. Right. Okay, let's try to access something else. I just click on info. It is going to give me general information about the system, CPU info and server info, all kinds of information that I want I can get. Database, so if you want to connect to any particular database. Remote shell, so if you want to connect a bind shell on this device, all you have to do is connect to these ports. You can click on go and run nc, so you can connect to this using netcat. Eval is going to execute any code that you tell it to. PHP, no. Okay, it's going to execute code in whatever language you want. And Explorer is your file explorer. PS is going to tell you the list of running processes. You can kill these processes as well if you want. Let's go to Explorer again. And if I go to var www html and dvwa, I can change whatever I want as well. So I can change whatever I want here. If I go to the index.php page, this is the text that appears. Okay, I can simply change the heading if I want. So currently it says modified dvwa because I changed it in a previous session. I can change it to say I need to enable editing. Edit. I can change this modified dvwa to say hacked dvwa. If I save it, so it has been saved. If I go to dvwa now, go to dvwa, then it's going to say hacked dvwa. So with a web shell, basically you can do whatever you want on a server. And if this kind of file vulnerability exists, then of course you've just seen what can be done with that. Now let's change the security level once again. Get to medium. We'll try uploading it similar to what we did last time. Okay, this time it gives us an error. It says that your image was not uploaded. We can only accept JPG or PNG images. Okay, but there is a workaround for this. There is a way to still, use this same shell that we did. All I need to do is I need to go to that directory where the file is stored. Okay, b374k.php, and I'll simply rename it to b374k.php.jpg. So now I've renamed the file. Now let's see if we try to upload it, what happens. Okay, so it's uploaded, but now it's in JPEG format, so we can't use it. But there is something we can do about this, and Burp Suite will come in handy this time. Intercept is on. Now what I'm going to do is, when I select this JPEG file, click on upload. So this is the request for uploading the file to the server. What I'll do is I'll simply change this file name b374k.php. And now the PHP file has been successfully uploaded. If I try to navigate to that folder, that directory, Hackable uploads, then you'll see that it has been uploaded v374k.php. And if we want, again, we can go and do whatever we want here. Now again, since we uploaded it again, it overrode the previous one, and the JPG file is also there because that was also a part of this. So let's go back now. Let's see what kind of stuff they're doing in this step. So they are keeping in the request they are getting, they're checking whether the uploaded image type is JPG or PNG. If so, only then they'll allow it to upload. Otherwise, it'll give you an error. Now in high security, let's see what happens if we do the same thing again. I'll select this file for upload. Okay, burp suit is being used. Intercept, let's turn it on. Click on upload. And if I change this, again it tells me that your image was not uploaded. We only accept image files. So our previous trick is not working here. Let's see what the reason could be. So again, file information is being taken in this case. And when they uploaded, at the time the extension is also being checked, so we cannot change the extension in the request and expect to run it like that. What happens if I directly try to just upload this? Even in this case, we are getting the same error, because although we have changed the extension, our file is still in PHP. But there is one thing that we can do. We can trick it into thinking that this is an image file. So again, browse, select this. Upload, and we get the request in burp. Now in this case, I cannot change the extension, otherwise it's not going to work. And in the file content, we can simply add this GIF 298, so that it's going to think that okay, this is the GIF 298, GIF 298, so that it's going to think that this is an actual image file. So forward this, and now our file was successfully uploaded. But in this case, the thing is, since it's an image file, directly accessing it won't work. If I try to do that, this is the image file, and it says that the image cannot be displayed because it contains errors, and that is since it's not an actual image, it's just a file that we are trying to sneak past the server. But what we can do is we can go to the command injection part, and we can try to rename that file. Okay, now I'll have to check whether it worked or not. So it worked. Our command ran. We used the command injection vulnerability. So we used that to change the b374k.php JPEG file to the back to the PHP file. Now if I open this, you'll see that it still says the GIF 298 that we added at the starting when we tried to pass it off as a JPEG file. Now again, I can do whatever I want in this case with this file, with this web shell actually. So we used one vulnerability to make use of another one. So often you will see that you'll come across situations where you'll need to mix different vulnerabilities or use them in combination with each another in order to perform whatever kind of attacks you're trying or whatever tests you are doing. So that is something that you need to keep in mind as well. This happens often, that you need to combine two different vulnerabilities and use them as one. Now, if I go to the security portion and change this to impossible, let's see, we'll try the same sequence again, see what happens. Load. But this time we are not able to do that. Your image was not uploaded. This time is thoroughly checking if it's an image or not. So it's also re-encoding the image, and it's then trying to see whether what we have uploaded qualifies as an actual image or not. If it does not, then it's not going to keep that in the uploads folder. It will remove that image, and it will tell the user that your image was not uploaded. So far whatever we've discussed today, is that clear? Are there any questions regarding that?
Yeah, it's pretty okay. I need to practice on that.
Yeah, definitely you practice this.
Yeah, yeah.
And if you have DVWA set up properly, then the rest you can practice easily. You should not be having any issues. The other tools that we used, like Hydra or Burp Suite, all of these you have previously installed on your system with Kali, so that should not be an issue. And okay, what else? This shell B374K that I showed you, you can access it from GitHub. Let me just I'll just give you the link as well. So for that shell, I've pasted the link in chat, so you can take a look at that, download it from there. And of course, definitely you should practice this, because only then you'll be able to clearly understand what we're doing and get a good idea of if you have any confusion or if you have any doubts regarding that. So
हेलो
yeah,
CSRF रह गया है सर मतलब
हाँ आई नो CSRF रह गया, डोंट वरी। CSRF
ओके
के बारे में थोड़ी सी बात कर लेते हैं आज, आगे का कल देख लेंगे।
ठीक है सर
CSRF is cross-site request forgery, and in this kind of vulnerability, basically what you're trying to do is you are trying to trick someone, trick a user who is actually working on a website, who has a logged in, like who has a session on the website. You're tricking them into clicking a link which will perform some action on their account, but you know whatever you present to them, it will appear as something else, but it will be doing some action on their account. Like in this case, the situation that we're going to see is we're going to present a link to the user which is going to change their password. So in this case it says change your admin password. If I enter PASS and again PASS, click on change, it's going to change that. So then when I log out and log in again, the original password is not going to work since I have changed it. This pass is going to work now, and we are going to make use of this HTML form and present a link to the user. We'll say some fake message there that okay, if you click on this link you get some money, you get something for free, something like that, your typical social engineering stuff. And we are going to present that link, and when they click on that link, it's actually going to change their password. So we'll see the detail, the practical for that tomorrow. Cross-site request forgery, simply, if you just want to discuss it a bit, you can go to these links as well. Okay, DVW also has a lot of reference links where you can study up on these things if you want. So it's also a good resource for learning. And whenever you make use of a vulnerability, you should definitely try and view the source code, see what you can understand from there. So basically, CSRF is where unauthorized commands are submitted from a user that the web application trusts. Okay, and we are going to look at that attack as well. So you can read up on these. Okay, whatever vulnerability you think you like more information on, you should always try to get more information, learn as much as you can. So okay, we'll be seeing how to do this.